billionaire CEO thought the flower girl was a stranger, until he saw her birthmark and froze. The moment froze in time. 400 wedding guests faded into a blur as Daniel Whitmore stared at the small crescent-shaped birthmark on the flower girl's collarbone. His perfectly orchestrated wedding day shattered into fragments as recognition dawned. "That birthmark," he whispered later, gripping Vanessa's wrist on the terrace, his voice raw with emotion. "It's the Whitmore crescent. My father had it. I have it. And now this child, your daughter, has it too." "I tried to tell you," Vanessa replied, tears threatening to spill. "For months after you left for London. Your assistant said you'd moved on to more appropriate companions." 6 years, Daniel's voice broke. 6 years of her life I've missed because someone decided I shouldn't know I had a daughter. What would you do if you discovered your child on the day you married someone else? How would you handle learning that the most important truth of your life had been hidden from you by those you trusted? I'm Mr. Harrison, and today's story will take you on an emotional journey of betrayal, discovery, and the extraordinary power of a tiny crescent-shaped birthmark that changed everything in the blink of an eye. Hi, my beautiful sisters. This story touches on something many of us have experienced. Fighting to raise our children against impossible odds, making sacrifices that no one sees, and finding strength we never knew we had. Vanessa's journey reminds us that a mother's love knows no boundaries. She built a business from nothing, protected her child, and faced her past with dignity when it would have been easier to run. Whether you're a single mother, a woman who's had to reinvent herself, or someone who's had to make difficult choices for those you love, this story celebrates your courage. If you've ever felt invisible or that your struggles went unnoticed, I hope Vanessa's story reminds you that your strength matters, your sacrifices matter, and most importantly, you matter. Now let's begin this extraordinary tale. The morning of his wedding day dawned with perfect clarity, exactly as Daniel Whitmore had planned. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse suite, illuminating the custom Tom Ford tuxedo hanging in pristine readiness. At 38, the billionaire CEO of Whitmore Global had orchestrated this day with the same precision that had built his empire. Every detail controlled, every outcome anticipated. "The florist just confirmed final delivery at the venue," reported Jasmine, his personal assistant, tablet in hand as she efficiently checked items off her list. "The wedding planner says everything is on schedule." "Excellent." Daniel adjusted his platinum cufflinks, a gift from his fiancée, Victoria. "Any word from the Prescotts?" "They were flying in from Zurich this morning. Their plane landed an hour ago. They'll be at the ceremony as planned." Daniel nodded, satisfied. The Prescotts represented a potential 8-figure investment in Whitmore Global's newest tech division. Their presence at his wedding wasn't just social. It was strategic, like most elements of his carefully constructed life. What he didn't acknowledge, even to himself, was the hollow sensation that had taken residence beneath his ribs in recent weeks. This marriage to Victoria Bennett, heiress to the Bennett media conglomerate, made perfect sense on paper. Compatible backgrounds, mutual business interests, shared social circles. The society pages called them the perfect power couple. If something essential seemed missing, some vital spark he'd once known, well, that was merely sentimentality, a luxury successful men couldn't afford. Across town, in a modest apartment filled with morning sunlight and the scent of fresh coffee, Vanessa Brooks knelt before her 6-year-old daughter, adjusting the satin ribbon on her flower girl dress. "You look absolutely beautiful, Lily," she said, smoothing the child's dark curls. "Remember what we practiced? You walk slowly down the aisle, dropping petals as you go." Lily nodded solemnly, her blue eyes, so like her father's, wide with the importance of her role. "I remember, Mommy. Ms. Victoria said I was the perfect flower girl because I'm so good at following directions." Vanessa forced a smile, pushing away the complicated emotions that surfaced whenever her daughter unconsciously mimicked Victoria's precise, measured way of speaking. The woman who would become Lily's stepmother in just a few hours had selected the child for the role after meeting her at a charity function where Vanessa had been providing floral arrangements. Victoria had been charmed by Lily's poise and perfect manners, never suspecting the child's true connection to her fiancé. "That's right, sweetheart. And remember, this is just a job for us. Mommy is doing the flowers, and you're helping with the ceremony." Vanessa kept her tone light, though her heart felt leaden. "It's a very important day for Ms. Victoria and Mr. Whitmore. Will Mr. Whitmore like me?" Lily asked, twirling once to make her dress flare. "Ms. Victoria says he doesn't spend much time with children." The innocent question pierced Vanessa's heart. "I'm sure he will," she managed. "Who wouldn't adore you?" What she didn't say, what she could never say, was that Daniel Whitmore was Lily's father, though he had no idea the child existed. Their brief, intense relationship 6 years ago had ended when his company's expansion had taken him to London. Vanessa, then a junior floral designer at an upscale shop, had discovered her pregnancy 2 weeks after their parting. Her calls had gone unanswered, her messages apparently never reaching him through the protective barrier of assistants and handlers that surrounded a man of his position. After months of trying, she had made the difficult decision to raise her child alone, building her own business from scratch to support them. The irony of being hired to provide flowers for Daniel's wedding had seemed like a cruel cosmic joke, but the prestigious commission was too important for her struggling studio to refuse. And now, by some twist of fate or Victoria's unconscious recognition of features similar to her fiancé's, Lily had been chosen as flower girl, placing her directly in the path of the father who didn't know she existed. Vanessa had agonized over whether to withdraw from the wedding, to find some excuse to keep Lily away. But her business was finally gaining traction after years of struggle. This high-profile wedding could secure her studio's future, providing the stability Lily deserved. She had convinced herself that in a ceremony with 400 guests, Daniel would barely notice one small flower girl among the pageantry. Now, watching Lily practice her petal dropping with solemn concentration, Vanessa wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. 6 years earlier, Vanessa had been captivated by Daniel Whitmore from the moment he walked into Bellamy's, the exclusive floral design studio where she worked. He had come to personally select arrangements for a charity gala, something his assistant would normally handle. But Daniel had insisted on overseeing every detail himself. "The flowers set the tone for the entire event," he had explained, studying the sample arrangements with unexpected attention to detail. "They speak before anyone says a word." Vanessa, assigned to assist him as the junior designer on duty, had been struck by his intensity, the way he focused completely on whatever caught his interest. That day, somehow, she had caught his interest. "You have an unusual perspective," he had commented, watching her rearrange a sample to better showcase the rare orchids. "Most designers follow trends. You seem to follow something else entirely. Beauty doesn't always conform to expectations," she had replied, surprised by her own boldness with such a prominent client. "Sometimes the unexpected combination creates something more memorable." He had smiled then, a genuine expression that transformed his serious features. "I couldn't agree more." What had followed was unexpected indeed. A whirlwind romance conducted in stolen moments between his business commitments and her work schedule. Daniel had been different then, less guarded, more spontaneous. With Vanessa, he had shared parts of himself he kept hidden from his corporate world. His passion for architecture, his secret talent for sketching, his dream of someday designing a home with his own hands. "You make me remember who I was before Whitmore Global consumed my life," he had told her one night as they walked along the waterfront, the city lights reflecting in the harbor. "With you, I'm just Daniel again." For 3 intoxicating months, Vanessa had believed they were building something real. Then came the London expansion, a massive opportunity Daniel couldn't refuse. They had parted with promises to make it work despite the distance. "This is temporary," he had assured her the night before his departure. "Once things are stabilized there, we'll figure out our next steps." She had believed him completely. 2 weeks later, she discovered she was pregnant. Her joy had quickly turned to anxiety as her calls to Daniel went unreturned. Messages left with his office received only perfunctory responses. Finally, after weeks of trying, she had reached his personal assistant, Rebecca Winters. "Mr. Whitmore is establishing important connections in London. Rebecca had informed her coldly. He's asked not to be disturbed with personal matters from his time in New York. But this is important, Vanessa had insisted. I need to speak with him directly. Ms. Brooks, Rebecca's voice had dripped with condescension. Daniel has moved on to more appropriate companions. Your situation is not his concern. The dismissal had been devastating. When subsequent attempts to reach Daniel met similar barriers, Vanessa had eventually stopped trying. Her pregnancy had become visible, and Bellamy's had made it clear that an unwed, pregnant designer didn't fit their image. With no job, no partner, and a baby on the way, she had been forced to reinvent herself completely. The memory of those desperate months still haunted her as she drove Lily to the Whitmore estate for the wedding. She had started her business from her tiny apartment, designing arrangements on her kitchen table while her newborn slept nearby. Every client had been hard-won. Every success achieved through relentless determination and countless sleepless nights. Mommy, is that where Mr. Whitmore lives? Lily's voice pulled Vanessa from her thoughts as they approached the imposing gates of the estate. Yes, sweetheart. This is where the wedding will be. Lily pressed her face to the window, eyes wide at the sprawling grounds and the magnificent stone mansion beyond. It looks like a castle from my books. It does, doesn't it? Vanessa forced brightness into her voice as she showed her ID to the security guard. Remember, we're here to do our jobs. You're going to be the most beautiful flower girl, and I'm going to make sure all the flowers are perfect. As they drove up the winding driveway, Vanessa's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Somewhere in that mansion, Daniel was preparing to marry another woman, completely unaware that his daughter was about to walk down the aisle at his wedding. The Whitmore estate's private chapel gleamed with understated opulence. Cream roses and cascading orchids transformed the space into an ethereal garden, Vanessa's vision executed with painstaking precision by her small team. As she made final adjustments to the altar arrangements, she kept one eye on Lily, who sat primly on a bench in her flower girl finery, swinging her feet and chatting with one of the junior bridesmaids. The flowers are exquisite, commented Margaret Whitmore, Daniel's elegant mother, appearing beside Vanessa. Victoria was right to insist on you for the wedding, despite your relatively new studio. Thank you, Mrs. Whitmore. That means a great deal coming from you. Vanessa adjusted a spray of baby's breath, grateful that the older woman had never met her during her brief relationship with Daniel. Margaret's gaze drifted to Lily. Your daughter is lovely. Victoria mentioned she'll be our flower girl. Yes, she's very excited about her role. Vanessa felt a flutter of anxiety. Did Margaret see anything familiar in Lily's features? The shape of her eyes, the determined set of her jaw, all pure Daniel. She has remarkable poise for one so young, Margaret observed. Reminds me of Daniel at that age. Always so serious about his responsibilities. She smiled fondly at the memory, then moved on to greet arriving family members, leaving Vanessa frozen in place. The next hour passed in a blur of final preparations. Vanessa kept herself busy with last-minute adjustments to bouquets and boutonnieres, deliberately avoiding the groom's suite where Daniel was preparing with his groomsmen. Victoria, resplendent in her designer gown, stopped by the bridal suite to personally check on Lily, fussing over the child's hair and dress with genuine affection. You're going to be perfect, Victoria told Lily, straightening the small tiara of baby's breath in her dark curls. Just remember, slow steps, and smile at the photographer when you reach the front. Yes, Ms. Victoria, Lily replied earnestly. I practiced lots with Mommy. Victoria glanced at Vanessa with approval. Your mother has done a wonderful job with you. Perhaps you'll be a flower designer like her someday. Or a businesswoman like you and Mr. Whitmore, Lily replied seriously, causing Victoria to laugh in delight. Oh, I like her ambition, she told Vanessa. Daniel will be charmed. The comment sent a chill through Vanessa. In less than 30 minutes, Daniel would see his daughter for the first time, though he wouldn't know who she was. Would he notice the resemblance? Would something in Lily's features trigger recognition? As guests filled the chapel and the string quartet began to play, Vanessa took her place at the back, ready to assist with the procession. Her role complete, She could have joined the other vendors in the service area, but she needed to be near Lily, to be present for whatever might unfold. Daniel stood at the altar, the perfect image of a successful groom, confident, composed, handsome in his bespoke tuxedo. If he felt any nervousness, it didn't show in his posture or expression. Victoria had selected a traditional ceremony, with bridesmaids and groomsmen proceeding first, followed by the flower girl, and finally the bride herself on her father's arm. The procession began with practiced precision. Bridesmaids in pale blue silk floated down the aisle on the arms of groomsmen in matching tuxedos. Then came the moment Vanessa had been dreading. The wedding planner positioned Lily at the entrance, basket of rose petals in hand. "Remember, sweetheart, just like we practiced?" Vanessa whispered, straightening Lily's sash one last time. Lily nodded solemnly, then began her careful walk down the aisle, scattering petals with deliberate concentration. A collective murmur of appreciation rose from the guests at the sight of the beautiful child, her dark curls crowned with flowers, her blue eyes serious with the importance of her task. At the altar, Daniel watched the approaching flower girl with polite interest that quickly transformed into something else entirely. His composed expression faltered, a slight furrow appearing between his brows as something about the child caught his attention. Vanessa held her breath, recognizing the look of puzzled recognition that crossed his face. As Lily reached the front of the chapel and took her place as rehearsed, she turned slightly, the movement causing the high neckline of her dress to shift just enough to reveal the edge of a distinctive birthmark on her left collarbone. A small crescent moon shape, identical to the one Daniel himself bore in the same location. Daniel froze, his face draining of color as his eyes fixed on the birthmark. The distinctive crescent was a Whitmore family trait, passed down through generations, a mark he had inherited from his father and his father before him, a mark that could only mean one thing. His eyes lifted from the birthmark to study Lily's features with new intensity, the shape of her eyes, the curve of her cheek, the determined set of her jaw. Recognition dawned in his expression, followed by shock and something deeper, more profound. Then, as though drawn by some invisible force, his gaze moved beyond Lily to where Vanessa stood partially hidden at the back of the chapel. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and in that moment of connection, 6 years of separation collapsed into a single, breathless question that needed no voice. Is she mine? If you've ever had a moment when your past and present collided unexpectedly, hit that like button. And if you believe that some truths are destined to be revealed no matter how deeply they're buried, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison for more stories that will touch your heart and remind you of the power of destiny. The wedding planner, noticing Daniel's distraction, gave a subtle cough. The string quartet continued playing. The guests remained seated in expectation. But time seemed suspended between Vanessa and Daniel as a truth too long hidden finally surfaced. Victoria, waiting at the back of the chapel for her entrance, noticed nothing amiss, her attention focused on adjusting her veil one final time. But Margaret Whitmore, seated in the front row, followed her son's gaze with shrewd understanding, her eyes moving from Lily to Vanessa and back again, pieces falling into place. Daniel visibly gathered himself, years of boardroom discipline allowing him to regain his composure even as his world tilted on its axis. But his eyes never left Vanessa's, and in them she could read a clear message. This isn't over. We will talk. The wedding coordinator signaled for the bride's music to begin. The guests rose, turning toward the back of the chapel where Victoria prepared to make her entrance. The perfect society wedding continued its carefully choreographed progression, but beneath the surface, everything had changed. In that moment, as "Here Comes the Bride" filled the chapel, Vanessa knew with absolute certainty that regardless of what vows might be spoken today, a new chapter had begun. One that would rewrite the story of two people who had once loved each other, and the child who connected them forever. Lily, unaware of the silent drama unfolding around her, stood proudly at the altar, occasionally glancing up at Daniel with innocent curiosity, wondering why the serious man kept looking at her with such intensity. She didn't understand the significance of the small crescent birthmark she shared with him, or how that tiny moon-shaped mark had just changed the course of multiple lives. As Victoria began her procession down the aisle, radiant in white and oblivious to the revelation that had just occurred, Daniel straightened his shoulders and turned toward his approaching bride. But his mind remained fixed on the small flower girl standing nearby, the daughter he never knew he had, revealed by a birthmark he could not deny. The perfect day he had planned with such precision had just veered into uncharted territory, and for the first time in years, Daniel Whitmore found himself facing a future he could not control. The ceremony proceeded like a dream, or perhaps a nightmare, with Daniel speaking his vows in a voice that betrayed none of the turmoil beneath. Victoria, radiant in her designer gown, noticed nothing amiss as they exchanged rings and were pronounced husband and wife. The assembled guests applauded as they shared their first kiss as a married couple, camera flashes capturing the perfect moment for posterity. Only Margaret Whitmore, watching her son with the keen insight of a mother, recognized the slight tension in his jaw, the occasional glance toward the small flower girl who stood dutifully at her assigned place, occasionally touching the spot where her dress covered the telltale birthmark. As the recessional music swelled and the newlyweds prepared to walk back down the aisle, Daniel's hand tightened almost imperceptibly around Victoria's. His eyes briefly met Vanessa's again as they passed, a silent communication that carried both accusation and plea. Vanessa remained rooted in place, her heart pounding so loudly she was certain everyone must hear it. "Mommy, did I do it right?" Lily asked, skipping back to her side once the bridal party had exited. "You were perfect, sweetheart," Vanessa assured her, smoothing a stray curl from her daughter's forehead. "Absolutely perfect." The reception was held in the estate's grand ballroom, transformed by Vanessa's team into an enchanted garden with cascading floral installations and crystal-accented centerpieces. As the florist, Vanessa would normally have departed once the reception setup was complete, leaving her junior staff to handle any adjustments needed throughout the evening. But with Lily performing her flower girl duties through the first dance and cake cutting, she had no choice but to remain. She positioned herself near the service entrance, as inconspicuous as possible while keeping Lily in sight. The child was currently seated at a special children's table, chatting animatedly with the ring bearer and junior bridesmaids, blissfully unaware of the emotional storm brewing around her. "She has his eyes, you know?" Vanessa startled at the voice beside her. Margaret Whitmore stood there, champagne flute in hand, her expression unreadable. "Mrs. Whitmore, No need for explanations just yet," Margaret interrupted gently, "though I suspect there will be many required before this day is done." She sipped her champagne, her gaze fixed on Lily. "What's her name?" "Lily," Vanessa answered, her throat tight. "Lily Rose Brooks." "A beautiful name," Margaret nodded approvingly. "How old is she?" 6. Which would place her conception around the time Daniel was transitioning between New York and London. Margaret's tone remained conversational, though her eyes were sharp with calculation. "Did he know?" "I tried to tell him," Vanessa said quietly, "but he was unreachable. After a while, I stopped trying." Margaret studied her for a long moment. "You're not wearing a ring. Never married." "No. And you've raised her alone while building your business." "It wasn't a question but an assessment." "That couldn't have been easy." "Lily made it worthwhile," Vanessa replied simply. Something in Margaret's expression softened. "You should know that my son is many things, driven, sometimes ruthless in business, occasionally blind to what truly matters, but he is not the kind of man who would knowingly abandon his child." Before Vanessa could respond, a commotion near the head table drew their attention. Daniel had risen abruptly, excusing himself from Victoria's side with a brief word. His expression was controlled but intent as he scanned the room, clearly searching for someone. "It appears the moment of reckoning approaches," Margaret observed. "For what it's worth, I think you've done a remarkable job with my granddaughter." With that parting statement, she glided away, leaving Vanessa breathless with the realization that Margaret Whitmore had just claimed Lily as family. Daniel's purposeful stride carried him through the crowd, guests automatically parting before him. His destination became clear as he approached the children's table where Lily sat enjoying her dessert. Vanessa moved instinctively, weaving through tables to intercept him before he reached their daughter. She caught up just as he stopped beside Lily's chair. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, slightly breathless, "perhaps we could speak privately." Daniel's eyes met hers, a storm of emotions barely contained behind his composed exterior. "Yes, I think that's long overdue." His gaze shifted to Lily, who was looking up at them both with curious interest. "Hello, Lily. You did a wonderful job as our flower girl today." "Thank you, Mr. Whitmore," Lily replied politely, straightening in her chair. "Your wedding is very beautiful. Mommy made all the flowers special." "She certainly did." Daniel's voice softened as he addressed the child. "Would you mind if I borrowed your mother for a few minutes? We have some business to discuss." "Okay," Lily agreed easily. "I'm having cake with Tommy and Emma anyway." Daniel led Vanessa toward a secluded terrace off the main ballroom, his hand hovering near but not quite touching her back, a gesture both protective and uncertain. Once outside in the relative privacy of the evening air, he turned to face her, his composure finally cracking. "She's mine." Not a question but a statement of absolute certainty. Yes, there was no point in denial, not with the birthmark as evidence. 6 years. His voice was tight with controlled emotion. 6 years, Vanessa. Were you ever going to tell me? "I tried, Daniel. When I found out I was pregnant, I called your office dozens of times. I sent emails, letters. I was told repeatedly that you were unavailable, that your schedule was full, that you'd moved on." The old hurt resurfaced as she spoke. "After 3 months of trying, I got the message. You didn't want to be found." "That's not possible. I never received any messages from you." His brow furrowed in genuine confusion. "After London, I asked about you several times, but was told you'd moved on, started your own business." Which was true but not by choice. "I lost my position at Bellamy's when my pregnancy began to show. They didn't want an unwed mother representing their prestigious brand." The bitterness of that memory still stung. "Starting my own studio was the only way to support myself and prepare for Lily." Daniel ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, disrupting it in a gesture of frustration she remembered from their time together. "This doesn't make sense. Why would my messages about you be blocked? Why weren't your calls put through?" A cold realization dawned on Vanessa. "Who was your personal assistant when you moved to London?" "Rebecca Winters. She'd been with me for years. Managed everything during the transition." His eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because she made it very clear how she felt about me the last time I called your office." Vanessa's voice was quiet but firm. She said, and I quote, "Daniel has moved on to more appropriate companions. Your situation is not his concern." Daniel's expression darkened with anger. "Rebecca was let go 3 years ago for overstepping her authority in other matters. I had no idea she'd interfered to this extent." He shook his head in disbelief. "All this time, I have a daughter I knew nothing about because my assistant took it upon herself to protect me from complications." The weight of lost years hung between them. First steps, first words, birthdays and Christmases that could never be reclaimed. "She has your eyes," Vanessa said softly. "And your birthmark." The doctors said it was unusual for it to be so clearly defined, passed down so precisely. "The Whitmore crescent," Daniel murmured. "It's appeared in every generation for over 200 years. My father had it, I have it, and now—" His voice trailed off as the reality of his daughter's existence truly registered. "I need to know her, Vanessa. Everything about her. What she likes, what she fears, who she's becoming." The raw emotion in his voice caught Vanessa off guard. This was not the calculated businessman she'd expected to face, but the man she had once loved, passionate, direct, capable of depths of feeling he rarely revealed. "She's extraordinary," Vanessa said, unable to keep the pride from her voice. "Brilliant, determined, kind. She taught herself to read at 4. She collects rocks and knows all their scientific names. She wants to build robots that can help people." A smile touched Daniel's lips, the first genuine one she'd seen all day. "She sounds remarkable." The smile faded as reality reasserted itself. But where do we go from here? I just got married, Vanessa. An hour ago. The mention of Victoria brought the full complexity of their situation crashing back. Vanessa glanced toward the ballroom, where the reception continued in full swing, the bride currently surrounded by well-wishers, unaware that her perfect day was unraveling at the edges. I don't know, Vanessa admitted. This isn't how I imagined you finding out. I never intended. Mrs. Whitmore? Mr. Whitmore? The wedding planner's voice interrupted as she stepped onto the terrace. I'm sorry to intrude, but it's time for the first dance. Everyone is waiting. Daniel's jaw tightened, the conflict evident in his expression. Tell them we'll be right there, he said finally. As the planner retreated, he turned back to Vanessa. We need more time to discuss this properly. Can you stay until the end of the reception? We can talk after the guests leave. Lily will be exhausted by then. She's only 6, and it's already past her normal bedtime. Of course. Daniel hesitated, then reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a business card. My private number, he explained, writing on the back, and my home address. Come tomorrow morning, both of you. We'll sort this out together. Vanessa accepted the card, noting the irony of receiving Daniel Whitmore's contact information on his wedding day. What about Victoria? A shadow crossed his face. I'll speak with her tonight. She deserves to know the truth from the beginning. He glanced back toward the ballroom. I have to go. I understand. As he turned to leave, Daniel paused. For what it's worth, Vanessa, I never stopped wondering about you. What happened between us? It wasn't supposed to end that way. Before she could respond, he was gone, striding back into the reception to rejoin his bride for their first dance as husband and wife. Vanessa remained on the terrace, the cool evening air a welcome relief against her flushed skin. The card in her hand felt impossibly heavy, weighted with implications for all their futures. Sometimes life's most significant revelations come at the most inconvenient moments. If you've ever had your carefully planned life turned upside down by an unexpected truth, hit that like button. And stay with me as we discover how Daniel, Vanessa, and Victoria navigate the aftermath of this wedding day revelation. Inside, the reception continued its carefully choreographed progression. Daniel and Victoria performed their first dance flawlessly, his hands steady at her waist, his smile appropriately affectionate. Only someone who knew him well might have noticed the slight distance in his eyes, the occasional glance toward the small dark-haired girl who watched the dancing with undisguised delight from her seat at the children's table. Margaret Whitmore, observing from her table near the dance floor, missed nothing. Not her son's distraction, nor Victoria's growing awareness that something had changed. The bride's smile remained perfect, but her eyes had taken on a questioning sharpness as she noted her new husband's divided attention. As the evening progressed, Vanessa kept to the periphery, supervising her staff as they refreshed arrangements and prepared the elaborate floral backdrop for the cake cutting. Lily, increasingly tired but determined to fulfill her flower girl duties, stayed close by, occasionally resting her head against her mother's side. Mommy, why does Mr. Whitmore keep looking at us? She asked during a quiet moment, her perception sharper than Vanessa had realized. He's probably just checking that the flowers are perfect for his special day, Vanessa deflected, smoothing Lily's increasingly rumpled dress. I don't think so, Lily said with the straightforward logic of childhood. He looks at me like he's trying to solve a puzzle, and he has the same moon mark as me, right here. She touched her collarbone. I saw it when his collar moved during the dancing. Vanessa's heart skipped a beat at her daughter's observation. You noticed that, did you? Aha, you always said my moon mark was special and rare. But Mr. Whitmore has one too, in exactly the same place. Isn't that weird? It's unusual, Vanessa agreed carefully. Sweetheart, would you like to meet Mr. Whitmore properly tomorrow? He'd like to talk with us. Lily considered this with serious deliberation. Okay. But what about Ms. Victoria? Will she be there too? I'm not sure, Vanessa answered honestly, realizing she had no idea how Victoria would react to the revelation of her new husband's previously unknown child. The answer came sooner than expected. As the reception wound down and guests began to depart, Victoria appeared beside them, her bridal perfection slightly softened by the evening's festivities but her poise intact. "Vanessa, isn't it? The florist." Her tone was pleasant but carried an undercurrent of steel. "The arrangements were exquisite. You've clearly earned your reputation." "Thank you, Mrs. Whitmore. That means a great deal." Vanessa straightened, instinctively placing a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. Victoria's gaze dropped to the child, her expression warming slightly. "And Lily, you were the perfect flower girl. Thank you for helping make our day so special." "You're welcome, Miss Victoria," Lily replied, stifling a yawn. "Your dress is the prettiest I've ever seen." Victoria smiled, but her eyes returned to Vanessa with new intensity. "Daniel mentioned you'll be joining us tomorrow morning at the house. Both of you." The statement confirmed that Daniel had already spoken to his new wife, at least partially. Vanessa nodded, uncertain how to respond. "Good." Victoria's composure never wavered. 9 o'clock would be best. "We'll have breakfast on the terrace." With that, she turned and glided back to her husband's side, every inch the confident bride despite whatever conversation had transpired between them. "She doesn't seem mad," Lily observed sleepily. "That's good, right?" "I hope so, sweetheart," Vanessa murmured, wondering what exactly awaited them tomorrow at the Whitmore estate. As the last guests departed and the staff began the process of dismantling the elaborate reception, Vanessa gathered her team for final instructions. She had just finished when she felt a presence behind her. "Ms. Brooks." Daniel's voice was formal, appropriate for the public setting where staff and vendors still milled about. "Thank you for your exceptional work today. The flowers exceeded all expectations." "I'm glad they met with your approval, Mr. Whitmore." She matched his professional tone, aware of curious glances from her team. 9 o'clock tomorrow, he confirmed quietly. "The gate code is 1227. We'll be there." Something softened in his expression as he glanced at Lily, who had fallen asleep in a chair nearby, her flower girl dress crumpled, her dark curls escaping their careful arrangement. "She's beautiful, Vanessa. You've done an amazing job with her." The simple acknowledgement, free from accusations or demands, brought unexpected tears to Vanessa's eyes. "Thank you." Daniel nodded once, then rejoined Victoria, who was saying her goodbyes to the wedding planner. The newlyweds departed shortly after, leaving in a sleek black car that would take them not to an exotic honeymoon destination but back to the Whitmore estate, where tomorrow they would face a conversation that would redefine all their relationships. Vanessa gathered her sleeping daughter in her arms, Lily's head nestling trustingly against her shoulder. As she carried her child to her modest car, past the luxury vehicles of the departing guests, she wondered what tomorrow would bring. For 6 years, she had been Lily's entire world. Mother, father, provider, protector. Now that world was expanding in ways she couldn't control or predict. The night sky above was clear and star-filled, offering no answers but a strange sense of peace. Whatever happened tomorrow, one truth remained constant. Lily was loved by her mother, who had sacrificed everything to give her a good life, by a grandmother who had claimed her on sight, and now, perhaps, by a father who had just discovered her existence. It wasn't the family Vanessa had imagined, but it was theirs. Complicated, unexpected, and suddenly full of possibilities that hadn't existed when the day began. Morning arrived too quickly, sunlight streaming through the curtains of Vanessa's apartment as she lay awake, having barely slept. The digital clock on her nightstand read 6:17 a.m., nearly 3 hours before they were expected at the Whitmore estate. She slipped quietly from bed, careful not to wake Lily, who had finally fallen into deep sleep after a night of restless questions. "Why does Mr. Whitmore want to talk to us, Mommy?" Lily had asked as Vanessa tucked her in. "Is it about the flowers?" "Not exactly, sweetheart." Vanessa had chosen her words carefully. "Mr. Whitmore wants to get to know us better." "Because of my moon mark?" Lily's perception continued to surprise her. "Because he has one too?" "That's part of it." Vanessa had smoothed her daughter's hair, wondering how much to reveal. The Mark is special in his family. Are we part of his family? The innocent question had pierced Vanessa's heart. That's something we'll talk about tomorrow. Now sleep, my love. In the quiet morning kitchen, Vanessa prepared coffee with trembling hands, rehearsing explanations in her mind. How did you tell a 6-year-old that the man she'd just met was her father? That the woman who had just become his wife was now, in some complicated way, connected to her life? That everything was about to change in ways none of them could fully predict? By 8 o'clock, Lily was awake and full of excitement about visiting the castle again. Vanessa helped her dress in a simple blue sundress that brought out her eyes, Daniel's eyes, and tied her dark curls back with a matching ribbon. You look beautiful, sweetheart, Vanessa said, her throat tight with emotion. Are you sad, Mommy? Lily asked, reaching up to touch her mother's cheek. Your eyes look watery. Not sad, Vanessa assured her, gathering her close. Just thinking about how much I love you. I love you too. All the way to the moon and back a million times. Their familiar exchange steadied Vanessa as she finished getting ready. Whatever happened at the Whitmore estate, this bond, this love between mother and daughter, would remain their foundation. The drive to the estate felt both too long and too short. As they approached the imposing gates, Vanessa punched in the code Daniel had given her. 1227. The gates swung open silently, revealing the manicured grounds in morning light. It's even prettier in the daytime, Lily observed, her face pressed to the window. A uniformed staff member was waiting to direct them to a parking area near the main house. As they stepped from the car, Vanessa saw Daniel emerge onto the wide stone terrace that overlooked the gardens. He had exchanged his wedding finery for casual elegance. Tailored trousers and a light blue shirt that matched the color of his eyes. Of Lily's eyes. He descended the steps to meet them, his expression a complex mixture of anticipation and uncertainty. Vanessa, Lily, thank you for coming. Good morning, Mr. Whitmore. Lily greeted him politely, studying him with undisguised curiosity. Please call me Daniel. He knelt to her level, a gesture that surprised Vanessa. The Daniel she had known rarely adjusted himself to accommodate others. I'm very glad you could visit today. Your house is like a castle, Lily informed him seriously. Do you have secret passages? A genuine smile transformed Daniel's features. As a matter of fact, I do. The house was built in 1892, and the original owner was quite fond of architectural surprises. Would you like to see one later? Lily's eyes widened with delight. Yes, please. Then it's a promise. Daniel straightened, meeting Vanessa's gaze. Victoria is waiting on the terrace. She's arranged breakfast. The mention of Victoria sent a fresh wave of anxiety through Vanessa. How did a new bride react to meeting her husband's previously unknown child the day after their wedding? The possibilities ranged from fury to rejection, none of them pleasant to contemplate. Yet when they reached the terrace, Victoria Whitmore presented a picture of composed grace. Dressed in a simple white sundress, her honey blonde hair loose around her shoulders, she rose to greet them with a smile that, remarkably, seemed genuine. Welcome, she said, gesturing to the elegantly set table where breakfast awaited. I hope you're hungry. Our chef has prepared quite a spread. Lily, initially shy, was quickly won over by the array of fresh fruits, pastries, and a chocolate fountain that Victoria pointed out was specifically for dipping strawberries. I thought you might enjoy that, she told Lily. I certainly would have at your age. As they settled around the table, Vanessa braced herself for tension, for awkwardness, for the inevitable confrontation. Instead, Victoria maintained a flow of easy conversation, asking Lily about school, her friends, her interests. Daniel contributed occasionally, his attention fixed on his daughter with an intensity that missed nothing. The way she carefully cut her pancakes into precise triangles, her thoughtful consideration before answering questions, her occasional glances toward Vanessa for reassurance. It was only when Lily had finished eating and asked permission to explore the nearby garden that the adults finally addressed the situation that had brought them together. There's a lovely butterfly garden just beyond those roses, Victoria told Lily. You can see it from here, so we'll be able to watch you. Just stay within sight, please. I will, Lily promised, sliding from her chair. Thank you for breakfast, Miss Victoria. The chocolate fountain was amazing. As Lily skipped toward the garden, Victoria turned to face Vanessa and Daniel, her composed expression giving way to something more complex. Well, she said quietly, this is certainly not how I imagined spending the day after my wedding. Victoria, Daniel began, but she held up a hand to stop him. Let me finish, please. Her voice was steady, controlled. When Daniel told me last night about Lily, about your past relationship and the circumstances that kept him from knowing about his daughter, I had many reactions. Shock, anger, hurt. She paused, her gaze moving to where Lily was carefully examining a flowering bush. But watching her today, seeing the way she moves, the expressions that are so clearly Daniel's, that remarkable birthmark, I can't deny the truth before my eyes. I never intended for any of this to happen, Vanessa said, feeling the inadequacy of the words even as she spoke them. If I had known we would be in this situation, I would have found another way to tell Daniel about Lily. Life rarely arranges itself for our convenience, Victoria replied with surprising gentleness. The question now is how we move forward. Daniel reached across the table to take his new wife's hand, a gesture of gratitude and solidarity that spoke volumes about their relationship. Victoria and I talked for hours last night, he explained to Vanessa, about what this means, about our options, about what's best for Lily. And what conclusions did you reach? Vanessa asked, her protective instincts rising. That Lily deserves to know her father, Victoria answered simply. That Daniel deserves the chance to know his daughter. And that punishing you or her for circumstances beyond anyone's control would be both cruel and pointless. The response was so unexpected, so measured and reasonable, that Vanessa found herself momentarily speechless. She had prepared for anger, for threats, for legal battles, not for this calm acceptance. I don't understand, she finally managed. You just married Daniel yesterday. Today you discover he has a child with someone else. How can you be so composed about this? Victoria's perfectly maintained facade cracked slightly, revealing a flash of vulnerability. Don't mistake composure for lack of feeling, Vanessa. This is painful and complicated and not at all what I envisioned for the beginning of my marriage. She took a steadying breath. But I've known Daniel for 3 years. I know his character, his integrity. I believe him when he says he never received your messages, that he would never have abandoned his child knowingly. And practical considerations aside, Daniel added, Lily is my daughter. Nothing changes that fundamental truth. I've missed 6 years of her life already. I don't intend to miss any more. The determination in his voice sent a shiver of apprehension through Vanessa. What exactly are you proposing? Daniel and Victoria exchanged a glance, some silent communication passing between them. We want to establish a relationship with Lily, Daniel said carefully. Regular visits, time for her to get to know me, us, and for us to know her. A gradual introduction to the truth about who I am to her, when you feel she's ready to understand. And eventually, Victoria added, perhaps a more formal arrangement regarding shared time and responsibilities. But that's a conversation for later, after we've all had time to adjust to this new reality. The reasonableness of their approach was disarming. Vanessa had expected demands, not suggestions. Ultimatums, not invitations to collaborate. You've thought this through, she acknowledged. We had a long night, Daniel replied with a hint of wry humor. But before we discuss specifics, there's something else we need to address. His expression darkened. Rebecca Winters. The name sent a chill through Vanessa. Your former assistant. Yes, the woman who took it upon herself to interfere in our lives with consequences none of us could have imagined. Daniel's voice hardened with controlled anger. I need to understand exactly what happened, Vanessa. Every detail you can remember about your interactions with her. Vanessa nodded, gathering her thoughts. After you left for London, I called your office almost daily for 2 weeks. Each time I was told you were unavailable in meetings, traveling. I left messages explaining that it was urgent, personal, that I needed to speak with you directly. None were returned. And Rebecca? When did you speak with her directly? About 3 weeks after you left. I was becoming desperate. The pregnancy test had confirmed what I suspected, and I was starting to feel the first symptoms. I finally managed to reach her by calling at 7 a.m., before the regular receptionist would be there to screen calls. Daniel nodded grimly. She was always in early. She answered with your office line, and I immediately asked to speak with you. She said you were unavailable, as usual, but this time I refused to be put off. I told her I was pregnant, that you needed to know, that it was your child. And her response? Victoria prompted gently when Vanessa paused. She laughed. The memory still stung after all these years. Then she said, Mr. Whitmore is establishing important connections in London with people appropriate to his position and future. He has moved on from his New York diversions. Your situation is not his concern. Daniel's expression had grown increasingly thunderous as she spoke. Those were her exact words? As close as I can remember after 6 years. But the message was unmistakable. You knew about my calls and had chosen not to respond. I never knew, Daniel said, his voice tight with suppressed fury. Not about your calls, not about the pregnancy, not about any of it. Rebecca filtered all my communications during that period. She presented herself as indispensable during the London transition, handling everything so I could focus on the expansion. Did you ever ask about me specifically? Vanessa couldn't help the question, though she feared the answer. A shadow crossed Daniel's face. Yes, several times in the first month. She told me you had moved on, that you'd left Bellamy's to start your own business and were doing well. That you had made it clear you weren't interested in a long-distance relationship. None of that was true. I was fired from Bellamy's when they discovered I was pregnant. Starting my own business was survival, not ambition. I'm beginning to understand why Rebecca was so resistant when I suggested reaching out to you again after I returned from London, Daniel said grimly. She had constructed an elaborate fiction and couldn't risk it unraveling. Victoria, who had been listening intently, leaned forward. You mentioned she was fired 3 years ago. What happened? I discovered she had been intercepting communications from several key clients, filtering information to present situations in ways that benefited her agenda. Daniel's jaw tightened. I never imagined she had done the same with my personal life. Where is she now? Vanessa asked. Last I heard, working for a tech startup in Seattle. Daniel's expression was resolute. But I intend to find out exactly what she did and why. This wasn't just interference in my personal life. It was a deliberate attempt to keep me from my child. The conversation paused as they noticed Lily approaching, her hands cupped carefully in front of her. Look what I found, she called excitedly. It was on the roses. She opened her palms to reveal a perfect butterfly, its wings a brilliant blue, resting trustingly in her small hands. Isn't it beautiful? I was super gentle, just like you taught me, Mommy. It's gorgeous, Vanessa agreed, momentarily grateful for the interruption. What kind is it? Do you remember from your butterfly book? Lily's brow furrowed in concentration. I think it's a blue morpho. They're not usually in gardens here. They're from rainforests. You're exactly right, Victoria said, genuine admiration in her voice. It's from our butterfly conservatory on the east side of the property. Sometimes they escape into the main gardens. You have a whole butterfly house? Lily's eyes widened with wonder. We do, Victoria smiled. Would you like to see it? There are hundreds of butterflies from all over the world. Yes, please. Lily carefully released the butterfly, watching as it fluttered back toward the roses. Can Mommy come too? Of course, Daniel answered, rising from his chair. We'll all go together. As they walked toward the conservatory, Lily skipping ahead in excitement, Daniel fell into step beside Vanessa. She's remarkable, he said quietly. Intelligent, observant, kind to creatures. You've done an extraordinary job raising her. She makes it easy, Vanessa replied, watching her daughter with a mixture of pride and apprehension. She's always been special, curious about everything, sensitive to others, determined to understand how things work. Like her father, Victoria commented, joining their conversation. At Vanessa's surprised look, she added, Daniel was building circuit boards at 7 and taking apart the household appliances to see how they functioned. His mother has told me stories that sound remarkably similar to what you've described about Lily. The observation created an unexpected moment of connection between the two women, a shared understanding of the man who linked them and the child who carried his traits. The Butterfly Conservatory was a glass-domed structure filled with tropical plants and hundreds of butterflies in every imaginable color. Lily's delight was infectious as she moved carefully through the space, pointing out different species and reciting facts she remembered from her books. Daniel stayed close beside her, answering her questions, his expression softening each time she looked up at him with those matching blue eyes. Watching them together, Vanessa felt a complex mixture of emotions. Joy at seeing Lily connect so naturally with her father, fear of what these changes might mean for their close mother-daughter bond, and a strange, unexpected gratitude toward Victoria, who was handling an impossible situation with remarkable grace. She'll need time to understand, Victoria said softly, coming to stand beside Vanessa as they watched Daniel showing Lily how to coax a butterfly onto her finger. We all will, but children are resilient, and she has something many don't. People who care deeply about her well-being. Including you? Vanessa couldn't help asking. You've known about her existence for less than a day. Victoria considered this, her gaze thoughtful. I've always wanted children. Daniel and I had discussed starting a family after a year or so of marriage. This isn't how I imagined becoming a stepmother. But Lily is part of Daniel, and Daniel is my husband. That creates a connection I can't, and wouldn't want to ignore. The honesty of the response was disarming. You're being remarkably understanding about all of this. Don't mistake composure for lack of feeling. Victoria repeated her earlier words. I had my moment of shock and anger last night. Believe me. But what would be the point of punishing an innocent child for circumstances beyond her control? Or punishing you, for that matter, when it's clear you tried to do the right thing? Victoria's gaze remained on Daniel and Lily. Besides, look at them. The connection is undeniable. It was true. Even in this short time together, Daniel and Lily had fallen into a natural rhythm. Their mannerisms and expressions so similar it was almost startling. The way they both tilted their heads slightly when considering something interesting, the focused intensity of their gaze, the precise, careful way they moved, all reflections of shared DNA that no amount of separation could erase. What happens now? Vanessa asked, voicing the question that had been weighing on her since the moment Daniel recognized his daughter. That's something we all need to discuss, Victoria replied. But not today. Today is for Daniel to begin knowing his daughter, for Lily to enjoy this time without the burden of too much information. The complicated conversations can wait a little longer. The wisdom in this approach was undeniable. Watching Lily's face light up as a brilliant blue butterfly landed on her outstretched finger, Vanessa felt a moment of pure gratitude that this first meeting was unfolding with such natural ease. They spent the next hour exploring the conservatory, then moved on to the promised secret passage, a hidden door in the library that led to a narrow staircase connecting to what had once been the servants' quarters. Lily was enchanted, declaring it, just like in my books, and immediately speculating about what other secrets the house might hold. The original owner was quite eccentric, Daniel explained as they emerged back into the main hallway. He built several of these passages so the staff could move through the house without being seen by guests. Were there really that many servants? Lily asked, her historical curiosity engaged. In the 1890s, a house this size would have had at least 20 staff members, Daniel replied, clearly pleased by her interest. Housekeepers, cooks, gardeners, footmen, maids. It was like running a small hotel. Do you have that many people working here now? Daniel smiled at her practical question. Not quite. We have a household staff of 8. Mrs. Reynolds, who manages the house, Chef Paolo, 2 housekeepers, a gardening team of 3, and James who handles security and driving. That still seems like a lot, Lily observed. In our apartment, it's just mommy and me doing everything. The innocent comment highlighted the vast difference between their worlds. A difference that had never seemed more pronounced than in this moment. Standing in the grand hallway of the Whitmore estate with its priceless artwork and generations of wealth on display, Victoria, sensing the sudden tension, smoothly suggested they move to the kitchen for lunch. Chef Paolo makes the most amazing pizza, she told Lily. He lets you choose your own toppings and shape the dough however you like. The prospect of making her own pizza successfully distracted Lily, and soon they were gathered in the enormous professional kitchen where the chef, a jovial Italian man with an impressive mustache, welcomed them warmly. "Ah, the little flower girl," he exclaimed upon seeing Lily. "I saw you at the wedding. So precise with your petals, just like an artist." Lily beamed at the praise, immediately warming to the chef who set her up at a special station with a child-sized apron and her own ball of pizza dough. As she concentrated on shaping her creation, the adults stepped slightly aside, speaking in low voices. "I'd like to arrange regular visits," Daniel said, his gaze never leaving Lily for long. "Time for us to build a relationship gradually, naturally." "Of course," Vanessa agreed, though the prospect filled her with a mixture of hope and anxiety. "But we need to be careful about how we explain things to her. She's perceptive, but she's still only 6. What have you told her about her father until now?" Victoria asked gently. "The truth as much as I could. That he was someone I cared for deeply. That he moved away before I knew I was pregnant. That he didn't know about her." Vanessa swallowed hard. "I never wanted her to think she was unwanted or abandoned." Daniel's expression softened with gratitude. "Thank you for that. For not making me the villain in her story." "You weren't the villain in mine either," Vanessa admitted quietly. "Just someone who disappeared from my life for reasons I didn't understand." The honesty of the moment created a fragile connection between them. Not the passionate bond they had once shared, but something new, tentative, built on the foundation of their shared love for the child currently sprinkling cheese with scientific precision on her pizza dough. "I think we should start simply," Victoria suggested. "Regular visits, building a friendship and trust. When the time feels right, when Lily herself starts asking the questions that will inevitably come, then we can explain the full truth." The reasonableness of her approach continued to surprise Vanessa. This poised, elegant woman who had just married Daniel yesterday was handling a situation that might have destroyed many relationships with remarkable composure and compassion. "That sounds sensible," Vanessa agreed. "But there's something else we need to consider." She hesitated, then pressed on. "My business is finally gaining traction after years of struggle. The Whitmore wedding was a significant opportunity for me. But if word gets out about Lily, about our past relationship, you're worried about how it might affect your professional reputation," Daniel finished for her, understanding immediately. "And Lily's life," Vanessa added. "The media attention, the gossip. She's too young to understand or cope with that kind of scrutiny." Daniel nodded grimly. "The press would have a field day with this story. Billionaire discovers secret child at his own wedding would make headlines for weeks. Which is why discretion is essential," Victoria said firmly. "For everyone's sake, but especially for Lily's. We'll need a plausible explanation for our connection," Daniel mused. "Something that explains why Lily is suddenly spending time with us without revealing the full truth until we're ready. Perhaps we simply say we met through the wedding and formed a friendship," Victoria suggested. "That we were impressed with Lily and wanted to mentor her. It's close enough to the truth without revealing the complete story. And it would explain my business receiving more commissions from your circle," Vanessa acknowledged, seeing the practical wisdom in the approach. "Speaking of your business," Daniel said, his expression shifting to something more businesslike, "I'd like to discuss financial arrangements for Lily." Vanessa stiffened immediately. "We don't need your money, Daniel. We've managed for 6 years without it." "That's not the point," he replied, his tone gentle but firm. "She's my daughter. I have a responsibility to provide for her, to ensure she has every advantage I can give her. Education, healthcare, opportunities, these aren't charity, Vanessa. They're her birthright. The word birthright hung in the air between them, weighted with implications about privilege, inheritance, and the Whitmore legacy that now, through the twist of fate revealed by a tiny crescent birthmark, included Lily. Daniel's right, Victoria said quietly. This isn't about your independence or capability, which are clearly remarkable. It's about what's rightfully Lily's as Daniel's daughter. Before Vanessa could respond, Lily called out excitedly, "Look, Mommy, I made my pizza in the shape of a butterfly." The adults turned to see her proudly displaying her creation, a surprisingly recognizable butterfly shape covered with carefully arranged toppings. Chef Paolo beamed with approval, declaring it un capolavoro, as he slid it into the stone oven. The moment of tension dissolved in the face of Lily's innocent joy. "We'll continue this conversation another time," Daniel said quietly. "Today is for getting to know each other, not for complicated negotiations." Vanessa nodded, grateful for the reprieve. The morning had already brought more changes and revelations than she could fully process. The thought of Daniel becoming a permanent part of their lives, of Victoria, the Whitmore estate, this world of privilege and power suddenly intersecting with the careful, modest life she had built for Lily, was overwhelming in its implications. As they gathered around the kitchen island to enjoy their homemade pizzas, Vanessa watched Daniel with their daughter, noting the gentle way he listened to her chatter about butterflies and secret passages, the genuine interest in his questions, the unmistakable pride in his eyes. Whatever complications lay ahead, one thing was becoming clear. Daniel Whitmore intended to be a father to Lily in every sense of the word. The question that remained was how this new reality would reshape all their lives, and whether the delicate balance they had struck today could withstand the pressures that would inevitably come. If you've ever had to navigate unexpected family complications or found yourself creating new definitions of family, hit that like button. And stay with me as we discover how these three adults and one remarkable child forge a new path forward in circumstances none of them could have imagined. The weeks following that first meeting at the Whitmore estate established a careful rhythm. Daniel visited Vanessa's apartment on Wednesday evenings, arriving with thoughtfully chosen gifts that revealed his growing understanding of his daughter. A professional-grade rock polishing kit for her mineral collection, a telescope that transformed their small balcony into an observatory, books about female scientists and engineers that fed her curious mind. Victoria joined them for Sunday brunches, sometimes at the estate, sometimes at child-friendly restaurants where Lily could be herself without the pressure of formal manners. To Vanessa's continued surprise, the relationship between the two women evolved from wary politeness to something approaching genuine respect, built on their shared commitment to Lily's well-being. "She asked about my moon mark again," Vanessa told Daniel during one of his Wednesday visits. After Lily had gone to bed, they sat in her modest living room, the contrast between his bespoke suit and her simple furniture a visual reminder of the different worlds they inhabited. "She's making connections, Daniel. She knows something significant is happening." "What did you tell her?" he asked, his expression serious. "That sometimes people have special marks that connect them to their families. That hers is special because it's rare and beautiful." Vanessa sighed. But she's too smart to be satisfied with vague explanations for long. She directly asked why you have the same mark, and why you've suddenly become part of our lives. Daniel nodded, unsurprised. She has a scientist's mind, observing patterns, forming hypotheses, seeking confirmation. Pride colored his voice. "We should tell her soon, before she pieces it together herself." "I agree. But how? What words do we use? How do we explain why you weren't in her life until now without making her feel abandoned or unwanted?" "The truth," Daniel said simply, "that I didn't know about her because of circumstances beyond our control, that once I saw her, once I recognized her as my daughter, I wanted nothing more than to be part of her life." The directness of his answer reminded Vanessa of the man she had fallen for 6 years ago. Straightforward, intense, uncompromising in his honesty. It was both reassuring and unsettling to see those qualities resurface in his relationship with Lily. "And Victoria? How does she feel about making this official?" "She's the one who suggested we move forward with telling Lily." Daniel's expression softened with something like wonder. She continues to surprise me with her grace in handling this situation. Vanessa had to agree. Victoria Whitmore had every right to resent the complication that had erupted in her new marriage, yet she had approached the situation with remarkable composure and genuine kindness toward Lily. We should do it together, Vanessa decided. All three of us present when we tell her. A united front to show her that while our family structure might be unconventional, we're all committed to her happiness. Daniel nodded, relief evident in his expression. Thank you, Vanessa, for being so reasonable about all of this, for raising our daughter with such care, for allowing me into her life despite the circumstances. The sincerity in his voice touched something in Vanessa that she had carefully guarded since their parting 6 years ago. She deserves to know her father, Daniel, and you deserve to know your daughter. The moment stretched between them, weighted with shared history and the complex emotions that still lingered beneath their carefully maintained composure. Then Daniel glanced at his watch and rose to leave, the spell broken. Sunday, then, he confirmed. We'll tell her together after brunch at the estate. As he left, Vanessa stood at the window watching him slide into the sleek black car that always waited at the curb, driven by James, the Whitmore security chief. The contrast between their lives had never seemed more pronounced. His world of drivers and estates and limitless resources, her modest apartment and struggling business. Yet they were forever connected by the sleeping child down the hall, a bridge between worlds that neither had anticipated. Sunday arrived with perfect early summer weather, the Whitmore estate gardens in full bloom as Vanessa and Lily arrived for their now regular brunch. Lily, dressed in her favorite yellow sundress, chattered excitedly about showing Daniel her latest rock specimens, which she had carefully packed in a special case. Do you think he'll like the geode I found? It's not as sparkly as the ones in his library, but I found it all by myself at the park. I'm sure he'll love it, Vanessa assured her, marveling at how quickly Lily had formed an attachment to Daniel. Each visit strengthened their bond, revealing shared interests and mannerisms that sometimes took Vanessa's breath away with their similarity. Victoria greeted them on the terrace, elegant as always in a simple white dress that somehow managed to look both casual and perfectly tailored. Daniel's in the library setting up a surprise, she told Lily with a conspiratorial smile. But he said we should start brunch without him. He'll join us soon. The meal passed pleasantly, with Lily entertaining them with stories from her science camp and Victoria listening with genuine interest. Vanessa found herself increasingly comfortable in these gatherings, though the surreal nature of sharing meals with her daughter and the woman who had married her former lover never quite dissipated. When Daniel finally appeared, he was carrying a large, flat package wrapped in simple blue paper. Sorry I'm late, he apologized, setting the package carefully against the wall. Some last-minute details needed attention. Is that for me? Lily asked, eyeing the package with undisguised curiosity. It is, Daniel confirmed, taking his seat at the table. But it's for after we talk. There's something important we'd like to discuss with you first. Lily's expression grew serious, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Am I in trouble? Not at all, Victoria assured her quickly. It's something good, but important. Daniel glanced at Vanessa, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded, and he turned to Lily with careful gentleness. Lily, you've noticed that you and I share something special, the crescent birthmark. You've asked about it several times. Lily nodded solemnly. The moon mark. Mommy says it's rare and special. It is, Daniel agreed. It's appeared in my family for generations. My father had it, and his father before him. Lily's quick mind was already working, her brow furrowed in concentration. So, we're related? Like family? Yes, Daniel said simply. I'm your father, Lily. The words hung in the air, momentous in their simplicity. Lily looked from Daniel to Vanessa, her expression a mixture of confusion and dawning comprehension. My father? But Mommy said my father moved away before I was born and didn't know about me. That's true, Vanessa confirmed gently. Daniel and I knew each other before you were born. When he moved to London for his work, I discovered I was pregnant with you. I tried to tell him, but because of a mistake, because of someone who worked for him, my messages never reached him. So you didn't know about me? Lily asked Daniel directly, her gaze unflinching. No, I didn't, he answered with equal directness. Not until I saw you at my wedding, not until I noticed our matching birthmarks. If I had known, Lily, I would have been part of your life from the beginning. Lily considered this with remarkable composure for a 6-year-old. That's why you started visiting us? Because you saw my moon mark and knew I was your daughter? Yes, Daniel confirmed. The moment I saw our matching marks, I knew we were connected, and I want to be your father in every way possible. And you're okay with this? Lily turned to Victoria, her perception once again surprising the adults. That he's my dad even though you just got married? Victoria smiled gently. Families come in all different forms, Lily. Daniel being your father doesn't change how I feel about him or about you. In fact, it means I get to be part of your life too, if you'll let me. Lily fell silent, processing this information with a seriousness that reminded Vanessa painfully of Daniel. Finally, she looked up at her mother. Did you love him before I was born? The direct question caught Vanessa off guard. Yes, she answered honestly. I did. And did you love my mom? Lily turned to Daniel, pursuing her line of questioning with scientific thoroughness. Daniel met her gaze steadily. I cared for your mother very much. We lost touch because of circumstances neither of us could control. But that doesn't change the fact that together, we created you. The most wonderful gift either of us could have received. Lily nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. She turned back to Vanessa. Is that why you looked sad sometimes when I asked about my father? Because you missed him? The perceptiveness of the question brought tears to Vanessa's eyes. I was sad because I thought you might never know him, and because I knew he was missing out on knowing you. But now we found each other, Lily said, her expression brightening. Because of our moon marks. Exactly, Daniel confirmed, his own voice thick with emotion. The birthmark that connects us through generations brought us together when nothing else could. Lily considered this for a moment, then asked the practical question that only a child would think to voice. So what do I call you now? Daniel or Dad? A flash of vulnerability crossed Daniel's face, quickly masked. Whatever feels right to you, Lily. We have time to figure everything out. There's no rush. Okay. She glanced at the package still leaning against the wall. Can I open my present now? The adults exchanged relieved smiles at her matter-of-fact acceptance. Of course, Daniel said, bringing the package to the table. Lily carefully unwrapped the blue paper to reveal a framed family tree, beautifully illustrated with the Whitmore lineage dating back 6 generations. At the bottom, in elegant calligraphy, was her own name, Lily Rose Brooks Whitmore, with her birth date and a small crescent moon symbol beside it. This is our family history, Daniel explained as Lily studied the document with fascination. Every person with the crescent birthmark has a moon symbol next to their name. You can see it appears every few generations, usually following the paternal line. There are so many people, Lily marveled, tracing the branches with her finger. And I'm connected to all of them? You are, Daniel confirmed. You're part of a long line of Whitmores, with a history that now includes you. And look, Victoria pointed out gently, there's space for the future too, for any children you might have someday, who might carry on the Whitmore crescent. Lily beamed at this idea, then looked up at Daniel with new understanding in her eyes. Thank you, Dad. The word, spoken for the first time, brought visible emotion to Daniel's face. He reached out hesitantly, and Lily moved into his embrace without reservation, the natural trust of childhood overcoming any awkwardness of their new relationship. Watching them, Vanessa felt a complex mixture of emotions, joy at seeing her daughter connect with her father, a bittersweet acknowledgement of the years lost, and a strange sense of completion, as though a circle had finally closed. Victoria caught her eye across the table, offering a small smile of understanding. In that moment, Vanessa realized they had formed something rare and precious, An unconventional family built not on traditional structures, but on a shared commitment to Lily's happiness and well-being. The rest of the day unfolded with a new ease, the truth now spoken aloud, allowing them all to relax into their evolving roles. Daniel showed Lily more family artifacts, photographs of ancestors who shared their distinctive eyes, journals kept by Whitmores through the generations, even a collection of small items marked with the crescent moon symbol that had become the family emblem. "This was my father's," he told her, showing her a pocket watch with the crescent engraved on its silver case. "Someday it will be yours, along with all the family history it represents." As evening approached and it was time to leave, Lily hugged Daniel with newfound confidence. "Will you still come on Wednesdays?" she asked. "Absolutely," he promised. "Nothing will change except that now we know who we really are to each other. And maybe," Victoria suggested gently, "you might like to spend some weekends here sometimes too. There's a bedroom that could be yours whenever you want to stay." Lily's eyes widened at the prospect. "With my own telescope spot? And space for my rock collection?" "All of that and more," Victoria assured her. "We can design it together, make it perfect for a young scientist." On the drive home, Lily was unusually quiet, processing the day's revelations in her thoughtful way. Finally, as they neared their apartment, she asked, "Mommy, are you sad that Dad is married to Victoria now instead of you?" The question, so direct and perceptive, momentarily took Vanessa's breath away. "No, sweetheart," she answered carefully. "What Daniel and I had was a long time ago. We've both changed, grown into different people. Victoria makes him happy, and she's been very kind to both of us." "She's nice," Lily agreed. "But it's still a little weird that my dad is married to someone who isn't my mom. None of my friends have families like that." "Families come in all different shapes and sizes," Vanessa reminded her, echoing Victoria's earlier words. "Some have moms and dads who live together, some have parents who live apart, some have step-parents or grandparents who raise them. What matters is that you're loved, by me, by your dad, and yes, even by Victoria in her own way." Lily considered this, then nodded with the acceptance that children often bring to complex situations. "I think I'm lucky," she decided. "I went from having just you to having a dad and Victoria too. That's more people to love me, right?" "Exactly right," Vanessa agreed, marveling at her daughter's wisdom. "That's exactly right." The following months brought adjustments both practical and emotional as they established their new family dynamic. Daniel's lawyers drew up formal agreements regarding Lily's financial support and inheritance rights, ensuring her position as a Whitmore heir while respecting Vanessa's role as primary caregiver. Victoria oversaw the creation of Lily's suite at the estate, a bedroom, bathroom, and small study area designed to nurture her scientific interests, complete with built-in display cases for her rock collection and a ceiling painted with constellations that glowed in the dark. Lily began spending one weekend a month at the estate, gradually increasing to 2 as her comfort with her new family grew. Daniel attended her school events, science fair presentations, and parent-teacher conferences alongside Vanessa, their initial awkwardness giving way to a comfortable co-parenting relationship built on mutual respect and shared pride in their daughter. The story of their unusual family remained private, protected by careful planning and the loyalty of those who knew the truth. To the outside world, Daniel Whitmore had simply taken an interest in a promising child he'd met through business connections, becoming a mentor and family friend. If anyone noticed the striking resemblance between them, or questioned the sudden closeness, the Whitmore name and reputation discouraged open speculation. 6 months after that first Sunday brunch revelation, Vanessa arrived at the estate to pick up Lily after her weekend stay and found Daniel waiting for her on the terrace, alone. Victoria took Lily to the Butterfly Conservatory to say goodbye to her favorites, he explained, gesturing for Vanessa to join him. "They'll be back shortly. Is everything okay?" Vanessa asked, noting the unusual seriousness in his expression. "Yes, everything's fine. Better than fine, actually." He hesitated, then continued. "I wanted to speak with you privately about something important. It's about Rebecca Winters." The name still sent a chill through Vanessa. "What about her?" "I found her," Daniel said simply. "In Seattle, as I suspected. I had my security team investigate exactly what happened 6 years ago, how your messages were intercepted, why I was never informed about your pregnancy. And Vanessa couldn't help the tension in her voice. It was worse than we thought. Daniel's expression darkened. Rebecca didn't just block your messages. She actively sabotaged our relationship because she believed you were a distraction from my true potential, as she put it. She intercepted your calls, deleted your emails, even returned a letter you sent marked address unknown. Why would she go to such lengths? Vanessa asked, though part of her already suspected the answer. She had convinced herself she was protecting me, protecting the company. Daniel's jaw tightened. But there was more to it. She had feelings for me, inappropriate ones that I never encouraged or reciprocated. In her mind, removing you from my life was both professionally and personally beneficial. And she never considered what that would mean for your child? For Lily. According to her, she didn't believe you were actually pregnant. She thought it was a ploy to maintain a connection with me. Daniel's disgust was evident. Even when she realized later that there had been a child, she justified her actions as having been for the best, that a relationship with you and an unplanned child would have derailed my career trajectory. The cold calculation behind Rebecca's actions was chilling. What did you do when you confronted her? I gave her a choice, Daniel said, his voice hard. Sign a comprehensive NDA and never work in the tech industry again, or face legal consequences for her interference. She chose the former. Is that enough? Vanessa couldn't help asking. After what she took from us, from Lily? Daniel was quiet for a moment. No punishment could restore the years we lost. But this ensures she can never harm our family again, and the financial settlement I forced her to accept has been placed in a trust for Lily's education. It seemed fitting that Rebecca's actions should ultimately benefit the child she tried to erase from my life. The word "our family" hung between them, a simple phrase that encompassed the complex reality they had created. Not the traditional family they might once have been, but something new, something that worked despite or perhaps because of its unconventional structure. Thank you for telling me, Vanessa said finally, for finding the truth. You deserved to know. We all did. Daniel hesitated, then added, There's something else I wanted to discuss with you. Something Victoria and I have been considering. Before he could continue, they heard Lily's excited voice approaching, chattering about a rare butterfly she had seen. The moment for private conversation passed as she burst onto the terrace, Victoria following at a more sedate pace. Mom, I saw a glass-winged butterfly. Its wings are transparent like windows, Lily exclaimed, rushing to hug Vanessa. Victoria says they're super rare, even in the conservatory. That sounds amazing, Vanessa replied, returning her daughter's embrace while exchanging a questioning glance with Daniel. Whatever he had been about to say would have to wait. Before you go, Victoria said, joining them, we wanted to invite you both to dinner next Sunday. We have something special to discuss. The formal invitation was unusual. They had settled into a comfortable routine of brunches and casual visits that rarely required special planning. Of course, Vanessa agreed, curiosity piqued. Is there a particular occasion? You could say that, Daniel replied with a smile that didn't quite reveal his thoughts. Something we'd like to share with both of you. The week passed with Vanessa wondering what announcement might be forthcoming. The most obvious possibility, that Victoria was pregnant, seemed likely, though the thought brought a complex mixture of emotions. A new Whitmore child would be Lily's half-sibling, further cementing her place in the family while potentially complicating the delicate balance they had established. When Sunday arrived, Lily was bubbling with excitement about the special dinner, having spent the week speculating about what the surprise might be. Maybe they're getting a puppy, she suggested as they drove to the estate, or building a science lab just for me. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Vanessa cautioned, though she smiled at her daughter's enthusiasm. Whatever it is, I'm sure it will be wonderful. They were greeted at the door by Mrs. Reynolds, the housekeeper, who directed them to the formal dining room rather than the terrace where they usually gathered. The table was set elegantly, with the family's finest china and crystal, fresh flowers in Vanessa's signature style at the center. Daniel and Victoria welcomed them warmly, Victoria especially radiant in a simple blue dress that complemented her fair coloring. They enjoyed a leisurely meal, with Lily entertaining them with stories from school and Daniel sharing amusing anecdotes from his own childhood that highlighted the similarities between father and daughter. It wasn't until dessert was served, Lily's favorite chocolate soufflé, that Victoria finally addressed the reason for the special gathering. "We asked you here tonight because we have some news to share," she began, glancing at Daniel with a smile. "News that will affect all of us, especially you, Lily." Lily sat up straighter, her expression eager. "Are you having a baby? Am I getting a brother or sister?" Victoria laughed softly. "Not quite, though that's a lovely thought for the future." She reached for Daniel's hand before continuing. "What we wanted to tell you is that we've decided to move. Not far, but to a new home that we're designing together." "You're leaving the estate?" Vanessa asked, surprised. The Whitmore mansion had been in Daniel's family for generations. "Not exactly leaving it," Daniel clarified. "The estate will remain in the family, maintained for special occasions and eventually as a historical property. But we're building a new primary residence on the eastern portion of the grounds. A home designed specifically for our family as it exists now. And we'd like your input," Victoria added, looking directly at Lily. "Because we're including a special wing just for you and your mother." The statement hung in the air, momentous in its implications. Vanessa found herself speechless, trying to process what was being proposed. "A wing? Like our own part of the house?" Lily asked, grasping the concept immediately. "Exactly," Daniel confirmed. "Your own private space within the larger home, bedrooms, a living area, even a small kitchen if you want. Connected to the main house but with separate entrances so you and your mom can have independence and privacy. The idea," Victoria explained, looking at Vanessa, "is to create a space where Lily can move freely between her two families without the constant transitions, where she doesn't have to choose between homes or pack bags to visit. Where you, Vanessa, can maintain your autonomy while still being part of Lily's life with us. It would be your space entirely," Daniel emphasized. "Designed to your specifications, maintained according to your preferences. You could use it whenever you wished, weekends, holidays, or even as your primary residence if that ever made sense for you." The offer was breathtaking in its generosity and thoughtfulness. Vanessa struggled to find words, aware of Lily watching her reaction closely. "Can we, Mom?" Lily asked, her eyes bright with excitement. "Can we have a special place at Dad and Victoria's new house?" "It's a lot to consider," Vanessa managed, her mind racing with implications. "It's incredibly generous, but you don't need to decide now," Victoria assured her quickly. "We understand it's a significant change to consider. The house won't be completed for at least 18 months, so there's time to think about what arrangement works best for all of us. We just wanted to include you from the beginning," Daniel added, "to design with your needs in mind, rather than trying to adapt a space later." Vanessa nodded, grateful for their understanding. "Thank you. I'll need some time to process this." "Of course," Victoria agreed. "But in the meantime, we'd love to show you both the preliminary plans. The architect has created some beautiful renderings." They moved to Daniel's study, where architectural drawings were spread across his desk. As Victoria explained the design concept, a modern interpretation of classic elements, with sustainable features and spaces designed for both privacy and togetherness. Vanessa watched Lily's face light up with each new detail. "And this would be your science room," Daniel showed Lily, pointing to a space in the family wing, with proper ventilation for experiments, built-in specimen cases, and a telescope dome accessible from your bedroom. "My own observatory?" Lily gasped, her excitement palpable. "Really? Really?" Victoria confirmed with a smile. "We want this to be a home where you can pursue all your interests, where you feel completely comfortable and inspired." As Lily pored over the plans with Daniel, Victoria drew Vanessa slightly aside. "I know this is overwhelming," she said quietly, "and I want you to know that there's no pressure. This isn't about changing your relationship with Lily or diminishing your role in her life." "Then what is it about?" Vanessa asked directly. Victoria considered her answer carefully. It's about acknowledging the reality of our situation, that we are, in an unconventional way, a family. That Lily deserves to have all of us in her life without constant disruption or divided loyalties. And yes, she admitted with characteristic honesty, it's about Daniel wanting his daughter close, wanting to be part of her daily life in a way that living in separate homes makes difficult. The sincerity in Victoria's voice was undeniable. This wasn't about power or control or showing off wealth. It was a genuine attempt to create a solution that served Lily's best interests while respecting the complex relationships between the adults in her life. "I'll think about it," Vanessa promised. "Truly consider it, not just dismiss it out of hand." "That's all we ask," Victoria replied with a smile. "And whatever you decide, know that we respect your role as Lily's mother above all else. This isn't about replacing you. It never could be." The sincerity in Victoria's voice touched Vanessa unexpectedly. Over these months, she had come to respect this woman who had handled an impossible situation with such grace, who had opened her heart to Lily without resentment or conditions. "Thank you," Vanessa said simply, "for everything you've done to make this situation work. Not many women would have been so understanding." Victoria's expression softened. "When I married Daniel, I committed to his whole life, his past, present, and future. Lily is the most precious part of that life. How could I not embrace her?" She glanced toward Daniel and Lily, who were deep in conversation about the telescope dome. "Besides, she's impossible not to love. You did that, Vanessa. You raised an extraordinary child." The acknowledgement, so freely given, created another moment of connection between the two women whose lives had become so unexpectedly intertwined. Later that night, after Lily had fallen asleep still chattering about observatory domes and science rooms, Vanessa sat alone in her living room, considering the proposal. The practical advantages were undeniable. A beautiful space designed specifically for them, the security of knowing Lily would always have a home in the Whitmore world, the convenience of eliminating the constant back and forth between residences. But deeper questions remained. Would living in such proximity to Daniel and Victoria, even in a separate wing, blur the boundaries they had so carefully established? Would Lily begin to see the wealth and privilege of the Whitmore lifestyle as normal, making their modest apartment seem inadequate by comparison? And what about Vanessa's own independence, her identity separate from her role as Lily's mother? These questions occupied her thoughts for weeks as she weighed the decision. She consulted her closest friend, Maya, who had supported her through the difficult early years of single motherhood. "It sounds like they're trying to create a modern version of a compound," Maya observed over coffee. "Separate but connected living spaces for an extended family. It's actually quite progressive. But is it healthy?" Vanessa pressed. "For Lily, for me, for all of us?" Maya considered this thoughtfully. "The question isn't whether it's conventional, it clearly isn't. The question is whether it serves Lily's best interests and respects your role in her life." She stirred her coffee slowly. "From everything you've told me, Daniel and Victoria have been remarkably respectful of your boundaries. They've acknowledged your primary role in Lily's life while building their own relationships with her. This seems like an extension of that approach, not a deviation from it. But living in their home, even a separate wing, doesn't that create an imbalance of power?" "Only if you let it," Maya replied pragmatically. "You've maintained your independence under far more challenging circumstances. I don't see you suddenly becoming deferential just because you're living on Whitmore property." The observation made Vanessa smile despite her concerns. It was true. She had fought too hard for her autonomy to surrender it now, regardless of her living arrangements. She also spoke with Dr. Levine, the child psychologist she had consulted when they first told Lily about Daniel being her father. The doctor's perspective was equally measured. "Children are remarkably adaptable," Dr. Levine noted. "What matters most to Lily is consistency in relationships and clear boundaries, not which physical structure she sleeps in. If all the adults in her life continue to communicate openly and prioritize her well-being, the living arrangement itself is secondary." These conversations helped clarify Vanessa's thinking, but the final decision came after a quiet moment with Lily one evening as they looked through old photographs together. "This was your first birthday?" Vanessa explained, showing Lily a picture of herself as a baby surrounded by balloons in their tiny first apartment. "We didn't have much then, but we had each other." Lily studied the photo thoughtfully. "Were you sad that Dad wasn't there?" The direct question, so characteristic of her daughter, caught Vanessa by surprise. "Yes," she admitted honestly. "I was sad that he couldn't share that day with us, that he didn't know what an amazing little person you were becoming. But now he knows," Lily said with the simple logic of childhood. "And he wants us to live in the new house so we can all be together more." "It's not quite that simple, sweetheart. Moving to the new house would be a big change for us. Our apartment has been our home for a long time." Lily considered this seriously. "But we'd still be together, right? You and me. Always," Vanessa assured her. "No matter where we live." "Then I don't think it matters which house we sleep in," Lily concluded. "As long as we're together and I can still see Dad and Victoria. And have my own observatory," she added with a grin. The wisdom in her daughter's simple perspective settled something in Vanessa's heart. 2 weeks later, she arranged to meet Daniel and Victoria at the architect's office to discuss her decision. "I've given this a lot of thought," she began as they gathered around the plans. "And I've decided to accept your offer, with a few conditions." Daniel and Victoria exchanged a glance of surprised pleasure. "Of course," Daniel agreed immediately. "Whatever conditions you need. First, I want to maintain my apartment in the city, at least initially. My business is based there, and I think it's important for Lily to maintain connections to the community we've built." "Absolutely," Victoria nodded. "That makes perfect sense. Second, I want to contribute to the design and construction costs of our wing. Not equally. I know that's not realistic given the difference in our resources, but meaningfully. This needs to feel like our space that we've helped create, not a gift we've passively received." Daniel started to object, but something in Vanessa's expression stopped him. After a moment, he nodded. "We can work out an arrangement that respects your need for independence, while acknowledging the reality of our different financial situations." And finally, Vanessa continued, "I want us to establish clear guidelines about parenting decisions, privacy boundaries, and how we'll handle inevitable disagreements. If we're going to live in such close proximity, we need explicit agreements about how we'll function as a family unit while respecting each other's autonomy." "That's more than reasonable," Victoria agreed. "In fact, it's essential. We should probably work with a family therapist to help establish those guidelines. Someone objective who can help us navigate this unusual arrangement." The thoughtfulness of the response confirmed for Vanessa that she was making the right decision. These people, this unconventional family they were creating, were committed to making their situation work with respect and consideration for everyone involved. "Then let's do this," she said, feeling a surprising sense of rightness in the decision. "Let's build a home for Lily that includes all the people who love her." The 18 months of design and construction passed quickly, filled with decisions about everything from floor plans to fixture finishes. True to their word, Daniel and Victoria included Vanessa in every aspect of planning the family wing, respecting her preferences and incorporating her ideas. The result was a space that reflected her aesthetic: warm, natural materials, abundant light, practical but beautiful furnishings, while integrating seamlessly with the overall design of the home. Lily's involvement in the process deepened her bond with all three adults, as they collaborated to create spaces that would nurture her curious mind and growing independence. The promised observatory dome became a reality, along with a science room equipped with age-appropriate but professional quality tools, and a bedroom that could evolve as she grew older. Throughout this period, they maintained their established routine: Wednesday visits, weekend stays at the estate, family brunches, while working with Dr. Mercer, a family therapist specializing in blended families, to develop the guidelines Vanessa had requested. These sessions sometimes revealed differing perspectives on parenting, privacy, and privilege, but always concluded with respectful compromises and clearer understanding. "What you're creating is unusual but not unprecedented," Dr. Mercer observed during one session. "Extended family compounds have existed throughout history. The key is maintaining clear boundaries while fostering genuine connection, something you all seem committed to achieving. By the time moving day arrived, Vanessa felt prepared for the transition, though not without lingering apprehension. As promised, she had maintained her city apartment, which would now serve primarily as her business headquarters and a pied-a-terre for city events. I understand you'd like a different ending to the story where Victoria becomes jealous and suspicious after they move to the new place. I'll revise the ending while maintaining consistency with everything that happened previously in the narrative. The new Whitmore residence was everything the architect had promised. A harmonious blend of classic and contemporary elements nestled into the eastern slope of the estate grounds, with sweeping views of the gardens and woods beyond. The main house connected to Vanessa and Lily's wing via a glass-enclosed walkway that could be closed off for privacy while maintaining visual connection to the shared spaces. "What do you think?" Daniel asked as he led them through the completed home for the first time. "Does it feel right?" Lily's response was immediate and enthusiastic, racing from room to room with exclamations of delight, especially when she discovered the observatory dome with its professional-grade telescope already installed and calibrated for her height. Vanessa's reaction was more measured but equally positive. "It's beautiful," she acknowledged, taking in the thoughtful details that made the space feel like theirs. Shelves sized for her book collection, a studio space with perfect northern light for her floral design work, photographs from their life together displayed prominently alongside new family images that included Daniel and Victoria. "You've honored everything we discussed. We wanted it to feel like home from the first moment," Victoria explained. "Not just a beautiful house, but a place that reflects who you are, who we all are together." That evening, after Lily had finally fallen asleep in her new bedroom beneath the glow-in-the-dark constellations, the three adults gathered on the main terrace with glasses of champagne to mark the occasion. "To new beginnings," Daniel proposed, raising his glass. "And to the most unconventional, unexpected family I could have imagined." "To family," Victoria agreed, her smile not quite reaching her eyes, "in all its beautiful complexity." "To Lily," Vanessa added, "who brought us together in ways none of us could have predicted." As weeks passed in their new living arrangement, subtle changes began to emerge in the dynamic between the three adults. Victoria, who had been so gracious and accommodating throughout the planning and construction, grew increasingly quiet during family dinners. Her warm smiles became more measured, her enthusiastic participation in activities with Lily more reserved. Vanessa first noticed the shift one evening when she entered the main kitchen to find Daniel and Lily baking cookies together, Flour dusting their matching dark hair as they laughed over some private joke. Victoria stood slightly apart, watching them with an expression that flickered between affection and something darker, more complicated. "Victoria, is everything all right?" Vanessa asked quietly, joining her at the counter. "Of course," Victoria replied, her composure instantly restored. "Just tired from a long day of meetings." But the moment had revealed a crack in the perfect facade, a glimpse of the emotional complexity beneath Victoria's carefully maintained poise. As the weeks turned to months, these moments multiplied. Victoria began scheduling more business trips, extending her absences from the house. When present, she watched with increasingly guarded eyes as Daniel spent his evenings helping Lily with science projects or stargazing in the observatory dome, their identical blue eyes alight with shared enthusiasm. "They're so alike," Victoria commented one evening as she and Vanessa stood watching Daniel and Lily through the glass-enclosed walkway. "Sometimes I forget she hasn't been part of his life all along." "He's making up for lost time," Vanessa replied, hearing the edge in Victoria's voice. "Yes," Victoria agreed, her tone carefully neutral. "Lost time." The tension crystallized one evening when Vanessa returned early from a client meeting to find Victoria in her studio, examining the photographs on her desk. Old pictures of Vanessa and Daniel from 6 years ago that Lily had recently asked to see. "Victoria," Vanessa said, startled by the unexpected intrusion. "I didn't realize you were in here." Victoria straightened, not quite meeting Vanessa's eyes. "Lily mentioned wanting to see pictures of you and Daniel together. I was curious myself. I should have shown them to you," Vanessa acknowledged, discomfort rising at the boundary crossed. Lily's been asking questions about our past relationship. I thought it might help her understand. You looked happy together, Victoria observed, her finger tracing the edge of a photo showing Daniel and Vanessa laughing on a harbor cruise. His arm around her shoulders, her head tilted toward him in unmistakable intimacy. We were, for a time, Vanessa admitted carefully. But that was years ago, Victoria. Before London, before everything changed. Victoria nodded, her expression unreadable. Before me. The simple statement hung in the air between them, weighted with unspoken questions and concerns. Victoria, if you're uncomfortable with any aspect of this arrangement, it was my idea, Victoria interrupted, a flash of defensiveness in her tone. This house, this family configuration. I encouraged it. Yes, but reality is different from theory, Vanessa said gently. Living in such close proximity, seeing Daniel with Lily every day with me, it would be natural to have complicated feelings about it. Victoria was silent for a long moment, her composure wavering. I see the way he looks at her, she finally said, her voice barely audible. With such pride, such connection. And sometimes I wonder if he looks at you the same way when I'm not there. If he remembers what you once had together. The vulnerability in her admission caught Vanessa off guard. This was the first crack in Victoria's perfect poise, the first acknowledgement of the emotional complexity beneath their carefully constructed arrangement. Daniel loves you, Vanessa said firmly. What he and I had was a brief chapter that ended years ago. His relationship with Lily is separate from that. It's about being her father, not about any lingering feelings for me. Victoria nodded, visibly gathering herself. I know that. Intellectually, I know that. She managed a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. Emotions aren't always rational, are they? No, Vanessa agreed. They rarely are. As Victoria left the studio, Vanessa remained troubled by the encounter. The delicate balance they had worked so hard to create suddenly seemed precarious, vulnerable to the very human emotions they had all tried to manage with such careful rationality. The situation came to a head a week later during what should have been a routine family dinner. Daniel had spent the afternoon with Lily in his home office, teaching her about the company's operations, and their animated conversation about business strategies continued at the table. You're a natural, Lily, Daniel said proudly as she explained her idea for improving one of the company's apps. You've got the Whitmore business instinct. Just like her father, Vanessa added with a smile, not noticing Victoria's tightening expression. Perhaps we could discuss something other than business, Victoria suggested, her tone carefully light. Lily, how is your science project coming along? Dad's been helping me with it, Lily replied enthusiastically. He showed me how to calibrate the measurements perfectly. We worked on it all weekend while you were in Chicago. I see, Victoria said, setting down her fork with deliberate care. It seems I've missed quite a lot while I've been traveling. Something in her tone caused Daniel to look up sharply. Is everything all right, Victoria? Perfectly fine, she replied with a brittle smile. I'm just noticing how comfortable everyone has become in this arrangement. How seamlessly you've all adjusted to living together. The emphasis on you all wasn't lost on either Daniel or Vanessa. Lily, sensing the sudden tension, looked between the adults with confusion. Did I say something wrong? She asked in a small voice. Not at all, sweetheart, Vanessa assured her quickly. Why don't you go check on that experiment we set up earlier? I'll come help you record the results in a few minutes. Once Lily had left the room, Daniel turned to his wife with concern. Victoria, what's going on? You've been distant for weeks now. Have I? Victoria's composure finally cracked. Or have you been too preoccupied with your ready-made family to notice? The daughter who shares your interests, your mannerisms, your birthmark, the woman you once loved, now conveniently living under our roof. Victoria, Daniel began, shock evident in his expression. That's not fair, she finished for him. Perhaps not. But watching you three together, seeing how naturally you fit as a unit, how similar you and Lily are, how easily you and Vanessa fall into parenting patterns. It makes me wonder where exactly I fit in this picture. Vanessa stood, uncomfortable at being present for what should be a private conversation. I should check on Lily. Please stay, Vanessa, Victoria said, her voice steadier now. This concerns all of us. The arrangement we've created, the boundaries we've established or failed to establish. I thought we were making this work, Daniel said, genuine confusion in his voice. I thought we were creating something positive for Lily, for all of us. We were trying, Victoria acknowledged, and in many ways we've succeeded. Lily is thriving. You're building the relationship with her that you should have had all along. But there are complications we didn't fully anticipate. What complications? Vanessa asked quietly, though she already suspected the answer. Victoria looked directly at her, the perfect poise finally giving way to raw honesty. History, connection, the fact that you and Daniel share not just a child but a past. The way you understand each other's references, finish each other's thoughts when discussing Lily. The natural ease between you that comes from once having been in love. The word love hung in the air, charged with implications none of them had directly addressed until now. Victoria, Daniel said, reaching for his wife's hand. What Vanessa and I had was years ago. It has nothing to do with my commitment to you, to our marriage. Doesn't it? Victoria asked softly. Can you honestly say you've never wondered what might have been if Rebecca hadn't interfered? If you'd known about Lily from the beginning? If you and Vanessa had raised her together? The question struck at the heart of unspoken thoughts that had occasionally crossed all their minds, the alternative path that Rebecca's interference had forever closed to them. We can't change the past, Daniel said finally. We can only move forward from where we are now. And where I am is married to you, committed to our life together, while also being a father to Lily. And living in a house with the mother of your child, Victoria added. A woman you once loved enough that her absence left you wondering about her for years afterward, by your own admission. Vanessa felt increasingly uncomfortable as the conversation veered into territory they had all carefully avoided. Perhaps this arrangement was too ambitious, she suggested quietly. Maybe we need to reconsider. No, Daniel interrupted firmly. Running away from this situation won't solve anything. We need to address Victoria's concerns directly, honestly. Victoria's expression softened slightly at his willingness to confront the issue. I don't want to disrupt what we've built for Lily, she said, her composure returning. I just need reassurance that I'm not simply an accommodation in a narrative that would have played out differently if circumstances had allowed. The vulnerability in her admission revealed the true heart of her concern. Not jealousy of Vanessa specifically, but fear that her place in Daniel's life, in this unconventional family they had created, was somehow secondary or contingent. You are my choice, Victoria, Daniel said with quiet intensity. Not an accommodation or a consolation, but the woman I chose to marry, to build a life with. Nothing about that has changed because Lily and Vanessa are now part of our extended family. The sincerity in his voice seemed to reach Victoria, though a shadow of uncertainty remained in her eyes. I want to believe that, she said softly. I need to believe that. As Vanessa watched this exchange, she realized that their carefully constructed arrangement, for all its practical benefits and good intentions, had overlooked something essential, the complex emotional undercurrents that no amount of rational planning could fully address. The past couldn't simply be filed away. It lived on in memories, in connections, in the very DNA that had revealed Lily's paternity through a crescent-shaped birthmark. The perfect solution they thought they had created was revealing its flaws, not through practical failures but through the very human emotions that no architectural design or legal agreement could contain. If this story has taught you anything, let it be that even the most carefully planned arrangements must make room for human feelings. The jealousies, insecurities, and unresolved emotions that inevitably surface when past and present collide. Hit that like button if you've ever found yourself navigating complicated family dynamics, and subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison for more stories that explore the messy, beautiful reality of human relationships. Remember, sometimes the most meaningful connections in our lives are also the most complicated. requiring not just good intentions but ongoing honesty, compassion, and the courage to face difficult truths. Until next time, this is Mr. Harrison, reminding you that in matters of the heart, there are rarely perfect solutions. Only imperfect people doing their best to love each other through life's unexpected turns.